What's up guys, YT here, and today is going to be a little bit of a different video. Today I'm going to be doing more of a tutorial for you guys. I did a video a while back, and it was a mod walkthrough of me making Brickarms M4 Phoenix mod, and it was supposed to be more of a tutorial styled video, but it wasn't very descriptive. It didn't really go through my process and stuff, and a bunch of you guys have been asking me to do this, but yeah, today I'm going to be doing basically a Brickarms modding tutorial video. I'm going to be making a mod, showing you guys step by step what I do, and yeah, hopefully you guys learn a thing or two. So the guns I have here that I'm going to mod, I have two Brickarms XM177 guns. We have a green one right here and a black one. Just as an example for this video, I'm going to be making kind of a freebie mod. This was a freebie with one of my orders. I'm going to be making what's called a Foxfur mold mod. A Foxfur mold is when you make a simulated overmold kind of. So I'm basically going to be making like an overmolded XM177, but I'm going to be swapping the parts. So on this black one, I'm going to be cutting off the foregrip, the magazine, and the stock, and replacing all those parts with the green ones. So it's going to kind of have like the black gun for the base and then the green for the accents. So anyways, let's just get started. I'm going to show you guys the tools that I use first. So what I'm cutting on right now is just this cutting mat that I got from Walmart. If you're outside the US, you can probably just order one of these online. But if you're in the US, you can get one of these at your local hardware store, or yeah, like I got it at Walmart. Pretty easy to find. It's probably only about 20 bucks. And if you don't want to buy one of those and you can't afford it, cardboard should be fine, as long as you have something that you're fine with cutting on and it won't go through your table. Next thing that I'm going to be showing you guys that I use is just these razor blades. These are called rectangular scraper blades. I'm pretty sure they're used for like scraping glass off of windows or car windshields. These are a super useful tool in modding. This is the main thing I use for a cutting device. They're super cheap. I buy them in packs of 10 for like $2 at your local hardware store. I get them at either Lowe's or Walmart, and if you're outside of the US, you can probably find them for super cheap just on any random online hardware store. Another useful tool is sandpaper. I cut up this little piece of sandpaper for sanding fine little spots on the gun. I think this is 220 grit fine, so try to find just a fine piece of sandpaper and maybe experiment with different grit types. I think this is 220 or 240, I'm not too sure, but yeah, just try to find whatever works for you. I also have this like craft sandpaper that came with like some wood modeling kit. So yeah, it's basically all up to preference of how much you really want it to sand through and how tough it is. Another important thing is obviously super glue. That's what glues it together. I use this Gorilla Glue liquid super glue. This is super cheap and it works really well. It's probably the strongest super glue I've used. I used some other brand previously and it wasn't that great, but I feel like this glue turns out really good when I use it on mods. It's a 15-gram Gorilla Glue bottle, so if you guys want to pick this up, then this would definitely be my recommendation. Another thing that I would recommend that you have is a palette, just to put the glue on, and then use a toothpick to get that off of your palette and then put it on the gun. I use just an old toilet paper roll piece. I know a couple of other modders that do this too. You can see I use this as a paint palette, and you can see all the little spare glue. But what you basically do is just put a drop of glue on the palette, scrape it up with a toothpick, and then ever so carefully put that on the spot that you want to mod. So yeah guys, that is everything that I use. I guess we'll just get started. So again, the plan for this mod is to cut the foregrip, magazine, and the stock off of this black gun, and cut the same parts off this gun, and then we're basically going to be swapping parts. So I guess I'll start with cutting off the barrel on this gun, because I'm going to have to cut this barrel off because I want to glue this barrel onto the green foregrip. Let me get a little bit of a zoom for you guys, and I guess I'll start cutting. You just want to ever so carefully find the spot that you're cutting, and then put the blade on that spot, and then you just apply pressure. I like to apply the pressure on both sides so that it doesn't bend the other side. It's a tedious process, but you just keep applying pressure until it comes off. So just like that, it came off. You can see a pretty clean cut. And I'm going to sand that down later. But yeah, now we're going to move on to the stock, I guess. So let's get started with the stock cut. Again, I'm just going to go on the very edge of the receiver. Let me zoom in a little bit. I'm going to put the blade on the very edge of the receiver where I want to cut, and then I'm going to start applying tiny amounts of pressure. And then you can see that gets the little cut started. And then I'll go to the other side and do the exact same thing. My camera can focus. And then once you feel like you've made a deep enough cut, what I do is just kind of break it off with my fingers. Be super careful when doing this because you don't want to mess up the other parts in your mod. But since you already got the cut going, you can just kind of break it off like that. And it should be pretty easy. And all this other excess on top can just be sanded off later. So now we got our two parts that we cut off. Now we're going to finish it off by cutting off the mag and then also the foregrip. And we're just going to be left with a blank receiver after we're done with that. So I guess we're going to start with the foregrip cut. This one's always a little bit tricky, but it shouldn't be too bad. I'm going to make kind of an angled cut like this, and then keep applying pressure. I'll swap to the other side, make another cut. And then you just keep applying pressure like that. Go to the other side. Another thing, if you want to get like a really deep cut, try sticking the corner in like this, angling it up with the corner and like applying pressure downwards. But be careful because the tip of your razor blade could slip and that could mess up some of the plastic. And just keep applying pressure on it and cutting. And then eventually you should be able just to snap it off. And there we go. That wasn't the cleanest cut, but I think it's alright. And now our last cut is just to cut the magazine. So we'll get started with that. A big tip for cutting magazines is first outline your cut. So at the top, since I want to cut it right at the top of the mag, I'm going to put my blade right there, make a little bit of pressure, and then you kind of have your baseline of where you want it to snap off. You can see right there. And then on the other side, that's what I'm going to do. Just so you don't cut like the upper portion of the receiver. You want it to kind of cut in the magazine boundaries. And then after that, I like to make angled cuts because that makes cutting magazines a lot easier. So I'm going to go in like this, at an angle, and apply pressure. And then I'm going to go to the other side. And then if you get it at an angle, it will kind of slide and cut super easily. Let's see it like this. We should keep making kind of cuts. Now it should be flimsy enough at this point just to kind of snap it off again. And there we go, we got it off. So now we got all the parts off. Now we're gonna move on to the green gun and start cutting the parts off of that. I'm gonna do this one a little bit faster and we'll try to get this one done. So I'll start by cutting off the barrel a little bit more carefully because I want to keep that handguard part for the black gun. There we go, just like that. There's a little tip on the end, so I'm just gonna kinda, and that should be fine later once we sand it down. Let's cut the stock off. There we go. Now the the stock is off. That's pretty nice. And we're going to want to keep that stock for the other gun. Now we're going to move on to the handguard. And there we go. It just breaks off like that. So that's pretty nice. If my camera will focus, which it's not. There we go. There's our piece. And now our last cut is just to cut the magazine off. So let's get up with that. And it just snaps off just like that. So now we have all of our parts that we're going to use to make the gun. Now I'm going to start sanding all the excess plastic off and cutting it off and getting it right down to shape so that we can start working on this gun. I'll start with the receiver right here. You can see I don't want that big lump of plastic on the front, so I'm going to kind of cut all that off. You gotta be really careful when you're doing flat cuts like this, because I've sliced my thumb open doing this. And we'll just kind of sand the rest off. Alright, I got it nice and sanded. Now I'm going to sand down the magazine port and also the end of the stock so that all the parts are nicely sanded for the green parts that we're going to put on. Alright, now I'm going to move on to sanding some of these green parts down. I'm going to use a different piece of sandpaper. Alright guys, so I finally got all the parts sanded down. It took a little bit longer than expected, but you just want to make sure you finally sand it down so it turns out as clean as possible in the end. But now we're on to the gluing stage. So I'm going to take my super glue right here, pop it open, and we're just going to squeeze a little drop right onto the palette. Just a little drop right there. Screw the cap back on. Now I'm going to take my toothpick. I'm going to start with the magazine. Put a little bit of super glue on the toothpick. Dab it right on the magazine port. You want to make sure you get a decent bit on there, but not too much. We're just going to take the magazine, line it up where we want it, and then slowly put it on. And then hold it in place for a few seconds. Make sure it's lined up. And I'm just going to slightly line it up with my fingers and nudge it into place so that it dries right where I want it. And I think that should be good. Not really as clean as I would have wanted it because the magazine is a little bit cut, if you can see right here on the tip. But that looks pretty good. You kind of get the gist of it, and I guess we can put the barrel on, but normally you would want to wait for it to dry. But I'm just going to go ahead, take the same glue and glue the barrel on, or the handguard, sorry. Take that little bit of glue, dab it right where I want it. A little bit more. That should be good. You want to make sure it's perfectly lined up before the glue dries. I think that looks good. And I'm going to leave this here to dry for a couple minutes and I'll be back. Alright guys, I let the glue dry for a few minutes and it looks pretty clean, but now let's move on to the last two parts. I think I'm going to do the stock next and then I'll do the barrel last. So let's open up our super glue again, squeeze out a tiny bit onto the tube, out of the tube, onto the palette, right there. And now again, I'm going to take a little bit off of the palette and just sort of dab that onto the gun. Now let's get the stock on. Alright, now it's on. I'm going to nudge it into place. And I think that looks pretty good. Now we're just going to wait for the stock to dry and we'll put the barrel on and that'll be it. Alright guys, I let the stock dry for a few minutes and now we're on to the last part, which is the barrel. So let's just get this done. Again, tiny bit of glue so we don't waste any onto our palette. Grab our toothpick again. And I'm going to try to make sure this is in focus. I really apologize if none of this is in focus. It's just hard to manage with the camera over my hands and it's hard to work like that. And we'll put a little bit just right there on the barrel. Now we're gonna slowly align up our barrel with the hand guard. We're gonna line it up and slowly stick it on. Because you don't want it to be like out of alignment. You want it to be nice and straight. And guys, I think that's it. One thing I would do after this whole process for a normal mod is to grab some black paint and use a toothpick to kind of fill in all these little cracks, like the cracks where the two pieces align. I would fill it in black paint and scrape away the excess. It would make it look a little bit cleaner, but I'm not going to do that right now just because this isn't a super serious mod. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll show you guys a better view of the mod. And there you go guys, there's the finished product of the mod. Your first mod is most likely not going to be perfect, but I just showed you guys the basics. And if you keep working at it, your skill is going to get better and better, and your mods are going to look cleaner and cleaner. And I'll have links down below to some of the products that I use, like the glue and the razor blades, so that you guys can relatively try to find the same products so that you guys can use them for yourself. If you found this video helpful, please consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing, and until next time, goodbye.